I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, "Who's chasing you?" But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you.
You know, this mindfulness revolution has swept America, especially everybody in Silicon Valley is meditating and taking on stoicism. Everyone's excited to pay attention and to bring their presence and aliveness to the moment. How can you do it? Because a lot of people, they're frankly not naturally good at mindfulness. If you think about it, they're caught in these reactive traps. You know, they're always impulsively reacting to things, and they don't feel centered. They don't feel peaceful. They don't feel connected to the moment. And frankly, those are things that just take training in the modern world. Hey, maybe those things came to people naturally, 100 or 1,000 years ago. They certainly don't today. You're constantly distracted. Your attention is constantly broken into. So what could you do to feel a little bit more of that aliveness and connection with life that comes through mindfulness?
Mindfulness is about paying attention, or more centrally, it's about the awareness that arises when we pay attention in a particular way. So we're paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, and with curiosity and interest.
Mindfulness is just kind of a fancy way of saying be present. That's it. Live in the now. Just be present with what is, because what often happens is we spend a lot of our time thinking about things that are coming up in the future. We even spend a lot of time worrying or being anxious, or sometimes even excited. It's not always a bad thing. Or we spend a lot of our time maybe thinking about the past, regretting the past, feeling guilty about things, or maybe even it's not always negative. We're thinking about good things that happened in the past. But regardless, we don't spend very much time being present, noticing what's happening in and around us in the present moment.
Well, mindfulness is all about paying attention and being present. And so mindfulness is both a formal meditation practice where you sit in a chair and you practice paying attention and being present, but it's also a way of living, because there's no point in being mindful in a chair for 5 or 10 minutes at the start of a day and then getting out of the chair and being unmindful for the rest of the day. So mindfulness in its fullness is both a formal practice in meditation, but it's an informal practice in living with awareness, living in the present moment, living with intention and openness in our day-to-day life.
So experientially, mindfulness is about paying attention to our actual experience, what's actually happening right now, and noticing that push or pull quality to our experience. So if something's pleasant in our experience, we might want it to continue. So we try to hold on to it, and there's this pull to really hold on to it. Or if something's unpleasant, we say, not so nice, I want this to go away, so we try to push it away. It's paying attention, noticing that push and pull, noticing when we're getting caught up in that experience, and just being with it, just noticing what's happening. When we notice, when we bring that awareness to our situation, instead of being pulled along by things or pushed by things, we can just be aware of them, and we're not sucked into them, we're not caught up in them, and we can simply be with them. So for example, we might get caught up in some ruminative thought pattern, like, I can't believe she did this to me, oh man, and we're caught up and caught up and caught up. You know, whatever that event was, it happened a long time ago, whether it's 10 minutes or 10 years. And guess what? We're getting sucked into it and getting totally stressed out by it, just by thinking about it. Well, when we pay attention to it and notice that pull, just observing it helps us step out of it so we're less caught up in it. And what happens? It's a huge relief. We can just be with it rather than being sucked into it. And we can start to notice the benefits of just being rather than trying to do things or getting caught up in our lives.
the essence of mindfulness. So what it really does is it teaches us, by learning to become present, what it really does is it slows down the brain. Instead of spending our time thinking about what I have to do or what's going on or what's coming next or what I have to be worried about or what I have to be planning for or whatever it is, or in the past, like something that happened in the past, something that, you know, that I'm upset about or that I'm angry about or that I'm regretting or feeling guilty about, and spending all this time and you sometimes maybe even feel like, I don't know if this happens to you, but feels like there's monkeys in your brain kind of jumping all over the place, going from one thought to the next, here and there and everywhere, and maybe one time frame to the next. You're going from the future to the past and all around, and you can really feel like your head is spinning. So what mindfulness does is it teaches us how to really just slow down the brain. It teaches our brain how to just be present and observe what's happening right here and right now.
The two main elements of mindfulness practice are attention and attitude. So the first one is attention, and most people suffer from what I often refer to as monkey mind. Your thoughts go where they want to go, and you're not really in control of what you're thinking. So you might be thinking about something, and then another thought comes up, and then another one comes up, and another one comes up. And before you know it, you're thinking about something and you don't even know how you got there. Mindfulness is the opposite. It is training your mind to stay present. It's training your mind to stay focused. And you can do that by focusing on anything.
The tip or the technique as such is to be present. So, and you can be present with any aspect of your life, really. But you can do it with the simplest of things. So in the first mindfulness class, we give people a raisin to eat. So you can just eat the raisin. We spend about 10 minutes eating a raisin, which sounds a bit weird and a bit strange. But the idea is to really engage all of your senses and to really taste that raisin. And people will say at the end of that, you know, I never knew that raisins, you know, tasted like that. I never had any idea, you know, associations of the earth and all kinds of things that come to mind. So it's really, you can turn your attention to the simplest of things. It could be absolutely anything, really.
So the second element to mindfulness practice is attitude. That is how you pay attention. And mindfulness is all about being kind and about being non-judgmental. And many of us have a tendency to constantly judge everything, to constantly give our opinion about things. Maybe not out loud, but internally that's a very common way of thinking. And mindfulness is really about training your thoughts to observe the facts in a kind and neutral way and not give your opinion. So in a way, it is about taming the inner critic. And what is so amazing is that when you combine paying attention to the present and doing that in a kind and non-judgmental way, you are immediately reducing stress levels in a very quick and effective way.
It's a conceit and probably delusional to think that, oh, since mindfulness is just about being in wise relationship with the present moment, well, I can just do that in any moment throughout my day and so forth. It sounds good, but as I've been trying to emphasize, it's the hardest work for us human beings to even string 2 moments of mindful presence together. So it does help to actually take some time out and formally exercise the muscle, work the muscle. And that's what the formal meditative practices would be, whether it's done lying down, a body scan, or just a quick lying down meditation, or sitting meditation, or walking meditation, or standing meditation. These are what we call formal mindfulness practices. And for the vast majority of human beings, those are absolutely essential. But that's not the real practice. That's the laying the foundation and completely supporting the real practice, which is living your life moment by moment and being here for it.
First ways that a person applies mindfulness is, firstly, doing a formal mindfulness meditation practice is a great way to really get the process going. And we don't have to sit in a chair practicing mindfulness meditation for too long to realize that most of the time when we're trying to pay attention, our mind's all over the place. So learning to notice not to judge or react to the fact that the mind gets distracted, to be more accepting and open, to notice when the attention goes off, to gently bring it back. So in mindfulness meditation practice, that would be to the body or the breathing, for example. So learning to practice that for 5 or 10 minutes, maybe say twice a day before our working day, so early in the day and maybe early in the evening between our working day, say, and our evening. Would be a good sort of time for the formal practice of mindfulness meditation. And then the informal practice of mindfulness is to be present and attentive as we go about our day-to-day life.
Meditation is easier than you think. Actually, you can meditate everywhere, anytime, under any circumstances. It's just awareness. So what we call the essence of meditation is awareness. Awareness meaning knows what you are thinking, what you are feeling, what you are doing. That is awareness. The knowingness knows. So many people think meditation is something which is very difficult, so empty mind, don't think of anything, concentration, like that, you know. So that is the misunderstanding about the meditation. So actually, meditation, you don't have to do anything like block the thought or create special state of mind, peace, calm, no need. Just simply be. So as long as if you're aware of something and then maintain that awareness, that is the meditation. So, but of course, sometimes when we meditate like that, then a lot of thought pop up in our mind, like to-do list. I have to do this. I need to talk to that person. I have this important deadline. Am I wasting time? How can I know I'm doing right or wrong? So all this comes. So that's normal.
And when it comes to meditation, I often hear this idea that people can't meditate, they're not good at it, their brain doesn't work that way because when they've tried in the past, they cannot have a blank mind. And just to clear that up, you're never going to have a blank mind. And that's okay because our brain's job is to think, and if it stops doing that, that means we're dead, and nobody wants that. So what we're trying to do when we are doing a mindfulness meditation is that we're noticing when we're having thoughts. Okay, so you might be focusing on your breath and then you get carried away in thinking about that grocery list, the shopping that you have to do the next day. And that doesn't mean that you failed. What that means is you say, thank you, mind. You acknowledge that you had that thought, and then you return to the breath. Okay, and you might do that 100 times in a 5-minute meditation, but as you practice that, as you get better at it, it tends to be less often that you get caught up in those thoughts and carried away.
So in many different types of meditation, we hear phrases like calm your mind, empty your mind, clear your mind. What I love about mindfulness meditation is that we don't use that language. And whilst that works for some people, it didn't work for me. Because in human nature, when someone tells you to calm down or clear your mind, it has the opposite effect. It makes you feel stressed that you can't do that. So first, what I love about mindfulness meditation is that it's all about being completely okay with where you're at. It's about being present and being okay. So no judgment whatsoever.
Research shows that about 10 minutes a day of doing a mindfulness meditation is all it takes to start changing our brains, getting the monkeys to chill out, calming down the swirling monkey here and there and everywhere thoughts.
So probably the best way to get a sense of what mindfulness is to do a little practice. So we're going to do that right now. And we're just going to be paying attention in ordinary ways that are probably really familiar to you, but with this sense of purposefulness. So first of all, just become aware that you're sitting here watching a video. And you're probably aware of your visual field, of course. You're watching me on a video. And I'll ask you to either keep your eyes open or maybe have a soft gaze, or you may even want to close your eyes. And then bring your attention to your body, sitting here in the chair. And you may be able to feel where your legs and arms are, the arrangement of your limbs, just feeling into whether your legs are crossed, your arms resting in your lap perhaps. Perhaps noticing the contact your body's making with the chair and the floor. Maybe you're able to feel the weight of your body in the chair. As you tune into your body in this way, you may be able to notice contact of your clothing against your skin. Or maybe even the contact of air against the parts of your body that aren't clothed. Just tuning into how your body feels sitting here in this moment. And as you tune into your experience in this purposeful way, in the present moment, just noticing if you can open up to how you're feeling emotionally. So there may be some curiosity, some interest. You may be noticing some lack of interest, some boredom, maybe even some irritation. Just noticing, and maybe noticing how those emotions feel in your body. And you may be feeling the emotional tone of paying attention to a video, but you also might be feeling other emotions that aren't related to being here right now. Sadness, sense of grumpiness maybe. Just tuning in and noticing your emotional tone right now with this kind of curiosity and open-heartedness, really a preparedness to experience what's here. And you may be noticing the arising of some thinking, some thoughts. Paying attention to how thoughts arise, hang around for a bit and then pass. Perhaps noticing the sounds in your environment, not only of my voice, but all the sounds around you, sounds close by or maybe far away. And then opening your eyes and taking in the visual field, the light, the shapes in front of you, colours. And that's a little experience of paying attention in this deliberate way.
So where we develop the skill to be mindful is in the practice of mindfulness meditation. Literally what we do in a practice of mindfulness meditation is we practice intentionally becoming aware moment by moment by moment. So say in a breathing mindfulness meditation, we just practice becoming aware moment by moment of the feeling or the experience of the breath. And over a certain period of time, you can get relatively good at becoming aware or mindful at your choosing. And then you can begin to apply this skill of mindfulness in more and more challenging scenarios in your life where we absolutely need the practice.
So every time I practice mindfulness meditation, I'm practicing bringing my mind back, bringing my mind back, bringing my mind back without judgment. And each time I do that, I get better at it. I get more comfortable with it. It becomes more natural until it becomes part of how I practice.
One way that people could start is because it's very hard to do this, but there are two wonderful moments in the day that you can really practice this when you ordinarily might say, well, I don't have any time for a formal mindfulness practice. I'm just way too busy. How about the moment when you wake up in bed? And rather than jumping out of bed, you just lie here and ask yourself, have I woken up fully yet? And be aware of all the thoughts moving through your mind and how it is in the body, lying there on your back maybe. And just getting in touch with your breath and the sense of your whole body lying here. So everybody's got time for that. Maybe just 1 or 2 or 3 breaths, but at least you've tuned. And if you want to do it longer, wake up a little earlier, do it for half an hour. You don't even have to get out of bed. And that way, no more excuses like, I don't have any time to meditate. Of course you have time to meditate. And if this is as important as I'm saying, you don't have time not to meditate. Because the potential value in terms of health and well-being is, extraordinary.
Mindfulness is not just meditation. Now, most of the times when mindfulness comes up, it is in the context of meditation, but you can really do anything mindfully. You can drive your car mindfully, you can wash the dishes mindfully. And what that is when you're doing it, you're just focusing on what you're noticing, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling, using all of your senses to be in that present moment and really focusing on the task at hand.
So the training is the mindfulness meditation, and life is being mindful. So how can I walk mindfully, work mindfully, be with my children mindfully, be with my partner mindfully, be with myself mindfully, which simply means having good self-awareness and being present. So it's not sort of some mumbo jumbo, how do I live a mindful life? How do I be present? How do I be in the here and now with myself, with my lover, with my children, with my friends, with my colleagues, in the office, at home? So the practice is the mindfulness meditation, and the practice is for life so that we can live a present and mindful life.
Practicing being more mindful in our everyday lives, just noticing what's around us, noticing what we smell, noticing what we see, noticing what we taste, noticing what we feel with our senses, what we're feeling. If we're noticing the ground underneath our feet or the chair underneath our butts right now, or whatever it is, learning how to just notice. And what it does is our brain, because our brain can't exist at 2 time frames at the same time, when we are present in our minds, we can't be worrying about the future or regretting the past. All we can do is be in 1 time frame at once. And so that's why it slows down our brains.
Mindfulness draws upon systems and neural networks in the brain that regulate attention. So specifically, there are executive regions right behind the forehead that are involved in the top-down regulation of attention. And literally through sustained mindfulness practice, such as in meditation, people literally thicken neural tissue, cortex tissue, in these regions behind the forehead, which is an indicator that they've built up neural structure because they've used a function again and again, regulating attention, which is central to mindfulness. And in the famous saying, neurons that fire together, wire together. It's kind of like muscle building, literally. As you continually work your biceps, you build up your biceps. If you work your triceps, you build up your triceps. So in that way, through mindfulness training, as people repeatedly work these neural networks right behind the forehead involved with top-down control, more blood flows to them, neurons start wiring together, existing neural connections called synapses become more sensitive, and in that way, mindfulness training leaves lasting, measurable changes behind in the physical brain in terms of its structure and function.
Practicing mindfulness over time, you'll notice that you don't get as ramped up about things as you used to. We learn how to respond to things in our environment instead of react. We're not in reaction mode, we're into respond mode. We're into, I notice what's happening, I notice what's going on, I'm present with what's here, right now. And then I decide how I want to respond. What do I want to do with this? How do I want to respond to this?
Mindfulness is a practice of coming to our senses. We use our intention, what's our intention, and attention. and attention is sensory driven. What do we see? What do we hear? What do we touch? What do we smell? What do we taste? What do we feel? And so when we begin to practice this concept of mindfulness, often eating meditation is a great place to begin the practice. One of the things that we can do before we eat is to have a check-in and to ask ourselves some questions. What's my intention? If my intention is to eat slowly, if my intention is to bring healthy food into my body, to nourish my brain, to nourish myself, to feed my family, I can pause, and I can pause when I'm walking through the grocery store to notice that I'm picking up healthy things to prepare. I invite you to look in your kitchen or your pantry or your workplace for a raisin or some other kind of food substance that is easily held. And in this particular exercise, I encourage participants here at the Center for Healthy Living to grab a raisin. And the first thing I do sometimes is to say, did you notice what hand you grabbed it with? Put it in your other hand. Put it in your non-dominant hand. First of all, and notice how much it weighs. It doesn't weigh very much. Often we eat raisins by the handful, and so this might be the very first time in your life that you've ever had just one raisin in your hand. Notice the colors and the texture, all of the indentations of how the grape has been shrunk and evaporated. I have people actually lift it to their nose and take a moment to just pause and smell it. I tell the people at the Center for Healthy Living, go ahead and pop it into their mouth, but don't bite it just yet. Roll it against your tongue and notice if you can taste it before you bite it. Go ahead and position it so that you can just take one bite. Bite it and feel the burst of flavor. When I ask people to describe that flavor, they'll say, well, it tastes like a raisin. Our vocabulary is pretty limited for that, but it tastes like a raisin. Notice how your body on autopilot began to swallow a piece of it, but take another bite and roll that flavor against your tongue. Have a sensibility of what that felt like, what it tasted like, and then as you begin to swallow, notice how your body knows how to do that.
Mindful walking is literally walking, but at a much slower rate. And it's taking into account what's happening around you. So when I do my mindful walking, I actually love walking outside because if you think about it, when we're walking, in fact, do this little test, just walk. You can see how fast it is and you're not noticing anything around you. But when you actually do a mindful walk, you go slower, just like I'm talking slower pace. Notice the movement that's actually happening around you. You really see this outdoors because you can see actually the trees and the leaves moving, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, there's tons of butterflies. What's going on here? Birds. I never saw that before when I was so in my moment. But you can also do this within the office. If you're going to a meeting and you're rushing, you're not taking note of anything, go slower. Allow yourself to just focus on what you're doing, 1 foot at a time. Even go super slow. That allows you just to be in that moment, which is what mindfulness is about, to bring you down, make you grounded, and when you're at a point where you can just look at things, you'll be amazed at what opportunities pop up.
So take inspiration from everyone around you, have a look, see what other people do to connect to themselves, but then just let that go, allow that to be their practice, and instead think about this really dynamic process of figuring out what it is that helps you to feel more connected. Is that yoga? Is that sitting down and reading a book? Is that taking a walk and leaving your phone at home? Is that being in the presence of certain people? Is it thinking about the breath? Is it just sitting for a few moments and breathing in a conscious way? So what is mindfulness? The answer is that it is something different for each of us. But if we want to develop a mindfulness practice, it isn't about what anybody else is doing. It's about finding something that helps us to feel more connected to ourselves in a way that works for us. And if that works for us today, but it doesn't feel right tomorrow, then that is all part of the process, and that is part of developing a practice.
The business world is showing an increasing interest in mindfulness, and I believe there's a reason for that. We currently witness a level of unprecedented change, mainly driven by digitization, automation, artificial intelligence, and just an overload of information. This has immense consequences for all of us. We need different ways of working, and we need new skills. But many organizations are not ready to make this transition yet. It's an overstretch. Many people struggle with making sense of agile ways of working and with understanding new technologies. And this creates anxiety and resistance. Mindfulness fosters open-mindedness and clarity, and thereby it helps leaders and teams to adopt quickly and to increase even the speed by which they learn new things.
It really is powerful stuff. When you're able to be in a mindful moment, you have the ability not to allow things to take over and really look at things from a very rational and calm perspective, allowing you to make better decisions. And in today's stressful environments at work, that is really, really important, which is why we're seeing more and more of it introduced into the workforce. We spend over 50% of our time during the week at work. And if those stress levels are really high, guess what? We live life 24/7, and we don't just turn off automatically when we leave the office. We bring it with us. And we're actually seeing this trickle effect of stress in the workforce trickling into our private lives. And so bringing mindfulness at work is not only a benefit for the organization, it's a benefit for the individuals, and something that really should be looked at deeply to bringing your organization and the people within it to the next level.
The innovative piece here is that mindfulness can serve as a valid and reliable catalyst to help people at work become more emotionally intelligent, resilient, and ultimately perform to their potential in ways that are aligned with their personal integrity and with their authenticity. So, what is mindfulness? Mindfulness in a work context is all about creating space. Space to first pay attention to what is actually happening in the situation that we're in. Space to second become aware or remember in the moment what our actual intention or purpose or most important priority is right here and right now. And third, space to respond with integrity and in the most productive way possible. Why is this mental space so useful? And why is it increasingly linked with a scientific body of evidence, linking it to beneficial outcomes such as well-being and productivity at work? Because by generating just a little bit of extra mental space for yourself and for the others that you work with, you are more open-minded and more psychologically flexible and able to experience the situation at hand rather than judging it prematurely. And the scientific evidence base is increasingly suggesting that it is this open-mindedness or this psychological flexibility that is at the heart of what makes people in today's workplaces do well and stay well.
Another benefit, which is a really great benefit, is the cohesion and the bonding it can have between teams. If you have teams that are not really working together, it's because they're so focused on themselves. Stress levels are probably a little bit high as well, and as a result, they can't deal with other people around them. But when you're mindful and as an organization you embrace those mindful techniques, it really can take away the aspect of me, ego, and bring us back into the aspect of we, a team, and actually have a more cohesive team. It also brings more compassion into the workplace, which is something that is really important, because guess what? We're not machines. We're human beings. And when we can be compassionate, not only for ourselves, by forgiving ourselves if we make mistakes, but also compassionate for those around us, then that leads for a better working environment, actually a safer working environment, psychologically safe, where we feel it's okay to be ourselves in order to bring out the best in us.
You see, workplace can be significantly transformed by practicing non-judgmental awareness, which is a skill that we learn while practicing mindfulness. As we practice mindfulness, we'll begin to see things as they are and not as we are. Non-judgmental awareness reduces the myopic impact of the filters we apply at our work through prejudices, assumptions, and all kinds of preconceived notions and ideas. When we become more mindful, we learn to communicate with clarity. We develop our capacity for empathy and transparency at work. We relate better with people, and thus we make team collaborations more effective and agile.
We live in a world more and more of where quick fixes is something that we're always looking for. But what I'm finding is quick fixes aren't the answer. They're a very temporary solution to a much larger problem. And it's really a Band-Aid. So mindfulness, what's really cool about mindfulness is it's taking away the layers of Band-Aids. It's stripping it away to the actual, I guess you can say, the wound, the problem, so you can actually truly heal it and fix it and move on. And that's the beauty of mindfulness, is that every single one of us have the power to do it. And if work organizations started bringing it more and more into their organization, helping their employees with their stress levels, you would see a huge shift in organizations.
Work is meant to be an experience that you can fully enjoy, but routines at work could put us on autopilot. This can be easily boring and often very stressful. People are consciously distracted with notifications these days, digital distractions, back-to-back meetings, so on and so forth. So instead of operating unconsciously, it's important to remind ourselves constantly to focus on the present moment. And the very first thing you got to do is to create a mental reminder. It's very challenging to do so, but trust me, regular and conscious efforts will help you change any habit. It's natural for your thoughts to wander, and when that happens, make conscious efforts to come back to the present moment. Try self-talk, particularly the kind of talk which allows your thoughts to shift to the present moment. Mindfulness, whether it is at work or in life, is to be consciously present on what you're doing while we are doing it. Applying mindfulness requires your full attention. So if you're talking to a person, you need to pay full attention to that person. While doing a task, pay attention only to that activity. When you have a presence of mind, you bring in all your senses to pay attention to all that demands your full attention. You switch from a default mode to an attention mode. You slow down a bit to be more agile. Now, this may sound counterintuitive, but when you take a mental break with sufficient relaxation, then you bring in your full attention and you can complete any work faster, and obviously the results are much better. So instead of stressing out, learn to manage pressure with more ease, because you are more engaged in your activities when you are mindful. Also, instead of time consuming you will learn to consume time with focus and intention. Today, mindfulness has become a tool to train yourself to pay attention. So when our minds get overwhelmed with more than what it can process, we tend to become less mindful. We lose our presence of mind. We find difficulty switching from the past future timelines to this present moment. We struggle from switching from work to our dinner tables with family. We're depleting the gift of staying in the present to enjoy the now, to be here in the now. We forget that the now that we can fully enjoy in this present moment is actually a true gift. That's why the present is also called a present, which means gift. So let's learn to enjoy, completely soak in, immerse ourselves in this gift of present moment. Let us learn to live mindfully, eat mindfully, cook mindfully, walk mindfully, learn mindfully, listen mindfully, speak mindfully. We have this gift to live mindfully, and we have the capacity to do so when we put the intention to live in the now.